old axiom that says you don't want to know how the sausage is made, and that it's best to just appreciate the surface level of things. With games, this isn't strictly true. Whilst most of us wouldn't understand the intricacies of code, we can at least appreciate the clever mechanics and algorithms that make us feel like the awesome main characters we play as. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 hidden video game mechanics that will blow your mind. Number 10. The hidden morality meter. Prey. Prey is a truly unique survival horror game in its ability to make the player feel like their decisions actually matter. The game does it so well, in fact, that sometimes you're not even aware when it takes notice of something you do. In the true ending of the game, and spoiler alert here, which happens after the credits roll, the main character, Morgan Yu, is revealed to be a Typhon that had its memories replaced with Morgan's to test if the aliens are capable of compassion and peacefully coexisting with humans. Depending on the results of this test, the Typhon is either sent to Earth as an ambassador between the two species or killed as a failed experiment. Prey determines the player's empathy levels through several different factors that it secretly keeps track of without ever letting the player know. Your morality is judged not only by the number of people you've rescued or spared, but also by the less obvious things like which psionic upgrades you've unlocked and used. Again, the game never informs you that these upgrades can have an impact on your empathy test. This way it can ensure that whatever you were doing prior to the test was entirely an unbiased choice. Number 9. Traffic adjustments. Saints Row the Third. There is something inherently satisfying about driving a car in games like Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row. Zooming through the traffic at breakneck speeds makes you feel like a total badass, but as it turns out, your bravado actually has a secret little helper to prevent you from constantly crashing into other cars on the road. In Saints Row 3, the traffic AI is specifically designed to make your time behind the wheel more satisfying. The brilliantly named Reddit user Shrimp Crackers has commented that the game actually adjusts the traffic so that the cars on the road make more room for the player to perform stunts. Moreover, the player's car is also programmed to automatically slide into the perfect position to narrowly avoid other vehicles. All of those adrenaline-pumping moments when you expertly dodged incoming traffic and thought you'd done the impossible were actually the result of an AI guiding you to the perfect path. Well, at least it looked cool in the moment. Number 8. The game secretly loads when you're in a tunnel. Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. In 2005, Neversoft launched a loud marketing campaign advertising that their newest game, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, had no levels, no limits, and most importantly, no loading times. In truth, the loading was obviously still happening, but the player was completely unaware of it thanks to a pretty nifty trick game developers use all the time. The secret to Tony Hawk's no loading feature lay inside the tunnels between each location in the game. While the player was skating through them, the game would load all the necessary assets in the background. When the player would finally emerge out of the tunnel, the map would already be there, and it would appear as though nothing had happened at all. This feature is actually a common mechanic in gaming, and it's referred to as dynamic loading. Game developers use things like long corridors, elevators, and doors that take a long time to open in order to load up new stages of the game without subjecting the player to a boring loading screen. Famous examples of this feature include things like the elevator shafts in Portal and the door animations in Resident Evil, and that's the secret to why these games ran so smoothly. Number 7. Nuke activation. Warzone 2.0. Nukes appear in many Call of Duty games and modes, but the one in Warzone 2.0 has remained something of a mystery due to the devs never confirming its existence. The mechanic was only discovered 3 days after the game's launch thanks to a Twitch streamer called Wagnificent, and even then most people wouldn't know about the nuke simply due to how complicated and difficult the process of activating it is. In order to blitz the landscape into dust, the player has to complete a 5-stage process. First, they need to win 5 matches in a row, then complete a special mission connected to the nuke and gather the 3 elements necessary to arm it. After that, they need to wait for a bomb site to appear on the map, get the elements to that location, arm the bomb with them, and finally wait 2 minutes for nuclear detonation. Activating the bomb results in an automatic win, but suffice to say, only the most skilled of players actually get it to work. Just winning 5 matches against hundreds of opponents can be a nigh impossible challenge, which is why so many new players may not even know the nuke exists. Number 6. Enemies miss you on purpose. BioShock. This hidden feature became well known a few years ago, but a lot of people seem to have misunderstood what the mechanic actually was, creating a myth that is still widespread to this day. The mechanic in question causes the splicers in BioShock to miss their first shot in order to prevent them from killing you instantly and to give you a moment to figure out where the shot came from. The director of the game, Ken Levine, weighed in on a Twitter thread to popularize the myth that enemies are programmed to always miss their first shot. In reality, their programming is far more complex. According to YouTuber DX, the splicers are subjected subjected to an inaccuracy curve that makes their skill with the gun evolve the more you progress through the game. In the beginning, this means the AI will tend to miss more often to help you get your bearings, but over time it will become more accurate and deadly. In other words, if you're bad at Bioshock early on, it sure isn't going to get any easier. Number 5. Enemies always go out in style. Half-Life 2. The physics engine in Half-Life 2 is one of the most impressive technological innovations at its time, and it still holds up impeccably after all these years. Contrary to what you might think, the secret to its greatness doesn't lie in its realism, but rather in its ability to make everything infinitely more fun. According to a Reddit post, the engine utilizes a very specific rule for the ragdolls in the game to make action scenes feel more dynamic. When fallen enemies become ragdolls, their bodies will be attracted to ledges and falling points so that they can go out in style as opposed to just slumping down to the floor and doing nothing. Thanks to this mechanic, your guns and crowbar feel like they're packing more punch, and you can feel like an action movie hero as you blast everything off of rooftops and railings. Additionally, the mechanic provides a quick and easy way to clean up piles of dead bodies that take up precious memory space. Nothing like combining the pleasant with the useful. Number 4. Bullets have a mind of their own. Fear. The rule of cool seems to be an important factor for game developers, even when designing a horror game like F.E.A.R. Similarly to other titles on this list, the 2005 first-person shooter utilizes a hidden mechanic that adds a little bit of spice to combat. The bullets in the game are programmed to gravitate towards explosive objects to, well, make more cool explosions happen. After all, it's a well-known fact that adding random things blowing up in the background can make anything better. The mechanic actually synergizes really well with one of the more prominent features of the game, bullet time. Since you're able to slow everything down, having a stray bullet or two accidentally hit an explosive can make for a truly spectacular view. It's even better considering the game's particle system, which makes random pieces of broken objects fly all over the screen. It seems the developers of F.E.A.R. knew well what made their game so special and did everything in order to emphasize it, even if it meant making their bullets a little suicidal. Number 3. This xenomorph has 2 brains. Alien isolation. The thing that separates the xenomorph from Alien isolation from other monsters in horror games is its ability to learn from the player's actions and use that information while hunting them down. The way in which the game accomplishes this is actually quite surprising. The xenomorph is controlled by not one, but 2 AIs that work together when chasing the player. The first AI is programmed to know where the player is at all times, but isn't in direct charge of the xenomorph. The second AI controls where the xenomorph is going, but doesn't have any information regarding the player. In order to simulate the xenomorph learning from and adapting to your behavior, the first AI feeds small pieces of information about your location and movement to the second. The clues are small enough to not sell you out immediately, but they are still enough for the second brain to be able to effectively search for you. In other words, if you ever felt like that nasty acid-spitting alien ever found you too easily, just remember that it wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of its big brother. Number 2. You can influence the goblin tribes. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. There's a mechanic in Oblivion that is never mentioned in the game and has no impact on the story or other missions, and no one in the game's community can agree on how it actually works. And yet, despite all this, it's possibly one of the more interesting mechanics in the entirety of the game. Within the Imperial province of Cyrodiil, there are a large number of goblin tribes. Unbeknownst to the player, the game monitors their diplomatic relations in the background. While the player is out adventuring, the goblins might be secretly waging war on each other or sending out raiding parties. Here is where the fun begins. The player can actually influence the relationships between the goblin tribes and which factions go to war. The trick involves stealing a tribe totem from one faction and implanting it in another. This will automatically turn the tribes hostile and send them to war. The spectacle that ensues if done correctly is truly delightful, and it's definitely worth learning the convoluted system. Frankie Goes to Hollywood said it best when they sang, "When 2 tribes go to war, it's really fun to watch in a video game." I don't know. And number 1, secretly deciding your ending. Metro 2033. By now, the moral points in the Metro system are somewhat well known. However, back when the first game came out, their existence was a total mystery. Even nowadays, with Metro Exodus, the developers refuse to directly acknowledge their existence, keeping most of the newer players completely in the dark. The moral points are hidden values that the game attaches to certain choices the player makes along the way. Yes, despite Metro being a relatively straightforward-looking first-person shooter, it does have a morality system that impacts which ending you're going to get. Your playstyle, the way in which you resolve certain missions, as well as many other actions in the game, can dictate how many moral points you'll acquire and how they'll affect the story. Keeping the moral points hidden might seem like a confusing choice, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Since the player has no idea their actions have in-game consequences, it allows them them to make decisions in accordance with what they believe as opposed to what is the most optimal. The end result is a more honest narrative experience that can truly surprise you with the impact your actions have on the world. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. Which of these hidden video game mechanics didn't you know about? And of course, let us know of any others like it in the comments. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Head over to whatculture.com for more content every day. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.